Hello everyone, this is Good Captain. Welcome to the final video in my series in the Battle of Coral Sea utilizing the Midway Guadalcanal game system produced by Avalon Hill. And if you're looking to see some final battle in this video, I'm sad to say you will be disappointed for two reasons. One, it's a technical error on my part. I was fooling around with what to do in the last save file and inadvertently deleted all my save files of this series, so I don't want to take the time to try to recreate it by looking at my previous YouTube videos. But also, I was playing around with it to see if I could come up with some sort of viable scenario where it looked like the Allies might have a chance. And to be honest, I couldn't really create one. Um, I don't know if I made some error in strategy somewhere for the Allied side, but it was clear that this is an a Japanese victory. The Allies had 38 points, and the Japanese had 63 points, I believe. So yeah, the Japanese just needed to make 15 more points, which they were easily or are could easily do. In other words, it was the night of May 5th when we ended. They would have gone through two night turns, so both sides would have been able to repair some of their air units. And then it would have gone into the morning of May 6th. And essentially, no matter where the Allied units moved, the Japanese would have been able to track them and immediately launch a very powerful strike group from their carriers, likely supported, the carriers themselves supported by combat air patrol from land-based air. So and then the American retaliation was very puny, as we only had the reduced capacity of Yorktown, 7 full air groups from Yorktown to do anything, to do all the scouting, um, combat air patrol, escort, and finally, of course, bombing duties. So it really it wasn't going to be um, the best part was what we already went through. And anyway, in terms of demonstrating how the gameplay works, this was just fine, just fine. Um, we went through air-to-air combat, ship-to-air combat, air-to-ship combat, air-to-base, base-to-air. We did everything, and we showed some of the nuances of the rules um, at play here. And now I'm going to go ahead and just review this operation. The Coral Sea operation, in hindsight, probably wasn't the best to play out on YouTube in terms of like demonstrating the game. It was fine, but it is the longest operational scenario in this series at 28 turns. Notice there's 5 days. The Coral Sea battle was a very long protracted carrier battle, and relative to the others in 1942. Santa Cruz, the Eastern Solomons, Midway, even the hypothetical scenarios, they all range between 12 and 16 turns, something like that. It is nowhere near this long. So the length of the scenario was probably is kind of a turnoff in terms of a YouTube series like I did, but we did it. And the other thing is that if I were to play this again, I would definitely have the more experienced player play as the allies. The Japanese, within the game rules that are provided, seem to have an advantage here in that they can really launch a devastating raid against Moresby, which ends Allied land-based air for the duration of the scenario. And this is where we're going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of wrap up my uh, comments on this Coral Sea operation specifically, and now segue into another topic I wanted to cover in my final video here, and that is the use of house rules. And I've I haven't played this game a lot, but I've played it a few times. I've played it enough over the last 20 years that I have enough experience with these two rules that I'm about to demonstrate to you. And the first is in regards to the fact that Port Moresby is destroyed, all the land-based air units were knocked out and counted as points for the Japanese. I invented um, a rule that I call disabled bases. This is at the end of the rulebook that's available for download. I put end of the official rulebook, and then just before we get to the points, the official victory point charts in the back, um, I have this, you know, the following are subtle rules that reduce two of the more gamey aspects of Midway and Guadalcanal. Or I should probably reword that, but the first is called disabled bases, and then instead of a base being eliminated, it's never actually taken off of the board. If it gets to the point where it is destroyed, it's flipped over, a two-hit marker is placed on it, and the whole thing is turned upside down to show that it is no longer worthy of uh, launching or receiving aircraft. Okay, then you can repair it like normal, but the end of the repair phase would have it turned right side up. In other words, the base would come back online, but flipped and with a two-hit marker on it. In the meantime, the opposing side could pummel the base and try to do damage to the air units on ground like the rules already state. And in this rule applied to this particular scenario, I think would really enhance the playability. In other words, the Allied air would not just get squashed in the first half of the day on the first turn. It would take the Japanese more time to reduce that position, and or the Allies, could repair some of that damage and get some of those strike aircraft off and do something to the Japanese. So anyway, for your consideration, the only other one I have in here, the only other rule that I have in here is the only thing I think this game might need is what I call variable initiative in air combat, and this is only between escorts and interceptors, or combat air patrol and escorts. In the game, the escorts have the initiative. In other words, they get to roll first. It's sequential. It's not simultaneous. Escorts fire first, then surviving combat air patrol fire back, and breakthroughs are handled accordingly. Well, with this rule, both sides roll a die before they engage. Before escorts and combat air patrol engage, both sides roll a die, and if one side or the other exceeds by 3 times as much, that side gets to fire first. So if you don't exceed the other side by 3 times or more, then combat is considered simultaneous. In other words, damage, I think this sums it up nicely. Combat occurs simultaneously, with damage being applied only after both sides have completed a round of combat. Okay. So those are the two rules that I think this game, if implemented, would truly bring it to peak efficiency. But I can play without them. I think the game is great without them. I just think applicable to this Coral Sea scenario in particular, it would be more beneficial, and balance, and make it more interesting and everything. So yeah, hey, if you've stuck with me this far, thanks for watching. I hope it was entertaining, if nothing else, and maybe it's gotten you to think maybe you want to play this. And if you do want to try it out and you're looking for an opponent, consider me your first opponent if you'd like. You just leave a comment in the description box below. I'll play you anytime. Otherwise, thanks for watching this. All the best from the good captain, and bye-bye.